My uncle was helping after my dad died, but he had other plans. I don't know how to start this without sounding like a complete asshole, but whatever. My dad died 2 months ago, and I think my mom is sleeping with his brother. Before you call me insane, hear me out. Dad's death was sudden. Heart attack. No warnings, no goodbyes. One moment, he was in the kitchen, making one of his disaster sandwiches with too much mayo, and the next, he was on the floor, not breathing. I was the one who found him. I was the one who called 911, even though I knew it was too late. The paramedics showed up, did their thing, and I just stood there, frozen, as they loaded him into the ambulance. Mom broke down instantly. She screamed, cried, almost collapsed on the floor. I didn't. Not because I wasn't devastated, but because someone had to hold it together. Someone had to call people, make arrangements, handle things. So I did. The funeral was a blur. A lot of faces, some familiar, some not. People hugging me, telling me how strong I was, how he would be proud. I wanted to tell them to shut the hell up. He was gone. What the fuck did it matter if he'd be proud? Then came the worst part, the house without him. Mom was barely functioning. She stayed in bed most days, barely ate, barely spoke. When she did, it was robotic. I'm fine. I'm just tired. Can you handle dinner? I did. I handled a lot of things. Bills, groceries, taking the car for an oil change, things a teenager shouldn't have to worry about. I didn't complain though. What else was I supposed to do? Then Uncle Rick started coming around. At first, I was relieved. He was Dad's older brother, always the more put-together one. He handled some of the practical stuff I couldn't. Fixed the leaky sink. Helped with paperwork. Sat with Mom, making sure she ate. But then, things started to feel weird. Maybe it was nothing at first. Just small things I ignored because I didn't want to be that person. But looking back, I should have paid attention earlier. Like how he started coming over every night. Or how Mom, who barely left her bedroom for weeks, suddenly started dressing nicer when she knew he was coming over. Or how their conversations felt different. Grief does weird things to people. I kept telling myself that. Maybe Mom just needed comfort, and Uncle Rick was the only person who understood her pain. It made sense, right? Right. But then I saw it. I was heading downstairs for some water late at night, when I heard them talking in the kitchen. Their voices were low, intimate. I froze halfway down the stairs. Then I heard her laugh. It wasn't just any laugh. It was that laugh. The kind I hadn't heard since before Dad died. A flirty, soft giggle. I didn't even know she could still laugh like that. I peeked through the railing. Rick was standing too close. His hand was on her arm. And the way she looked at him. I felt like I was intruding on something I wasn't supposed to see. I went back to my room and sat in the dark for hours. I told myself I was imagining things. That it was just two grieving people leaning on each other. That I was an idiot for even thinking something was off. But the next day, when Rick showed up, he had a key. You ever have one of those moments where everything around you feels wrong, but no one else seems to notice? That was me. Every single day after I saw my uncle touching my mom's arm in the kitchen, after I heard that laugh, I tried to shake it off. Maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe it was just grief. People act weird when they lose someone. But then Rick started acting like he lived here. It started small. His coffee mug was suddenly in the dish rack every morning. His stupid leather jacket, Dad's old leather jacket, was draped over the couch like he owned the place. Then, one night, I came home from a late shift at work and saw his truck parked in the driveway. It was still there the next morning. At breakfast, I dropped my spoon into my cereal loud enough to make Mom look up. "Rick spent the night?" I asked, casual as hell. Mom didn't even flinch. He fell asleep on the couch. Bullshit. The couch was spotless. No blanket, no pillow. Uh-huh, I said. And I'm supposed to believe that? She sighed, rubbing her temples like I was the problem. Kevin, Rick has been a huge help to us. He's just trying to be there for the family. Yeah, because from where I'm standing, it looks like he's trying to be Dad. She glared at me. That's not fair. Fair? I barked out a laugh. You know what's not fair? Dad's only been gone for 2 months, and you're already. I stopped myself, because I wasn't ready to say the words out loud. Mom's face twisted, like she suddenly felt guilty. Like maybe I was right. It's not what you think, she said, softer now. I stared at her for a long time, searching for the mom I used to know. But she was gone, buried under whatever the hell was happening in this house. I gotta go to work, I muttered, grabbing my keys and storming out. But I wasn't going to work. Not yet. I sat in my car across the street for an hour, watching the house, like some crazy stalker. I wasn't even sure what I was waiting for. Some kind of proof? A neon sign flashing. Your mom is sleeping with your uncle. And then I saw them. Through the kitchen window. She was standing by the sink, and he was behind her. Too close. Too damn close. Then he touched her waist. Just for a second, but it was enough to make me want to throw up right there in my car. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. What the fuck was happening? I needed proof. Real proof. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I went back inside, went straight to Mom's phone while she was upstairs, and unlocked it. She never changed her password. I went to her messages, feeling like the world's biggest piece of shit. And then I saw it. A text from Rick. Can't stop thinking about last night. My stomach twisted into a knot. I kept scrolling. Rick, I don't care what Kevin thinks. He'll come around. Mom, he's not stupid, Rick. He's starting to suspect. Rick, let him. We're not doing anything wrong. Not doing anything wrong? I turned off the phone and set it back exactly how I found it. Then I walked upstairs, straight to Mom's room. She was brushing her hair when she saw my face. What's wrong? I didn't even hesitate. How long has this been going on? Her eyes went wide. Kevin! I cut her off. Don't lie to me. I saw the texts. Silence. She swallowed hard, setting the brush down. It's complicated. No, it's not. My voice shook. You're screwing Dad's brother. She flinched like I'd slapped her. It's not like that. Then what is it like? I was yelling now, and I didn't care. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you moved on the second Dad's body went cold. That's not fair. Oh, so now we're talking about what's fair. Was it fair to Dad? Huh? Tears welled up in her eyes, but I didn't feel bad. Not this time. You don't understand, she whispered. I let out a bitter laugh. Yeah. Then explain it to me. Explain how this isn't the most fucked up thing I've ever seen. She took a deep breath. Rick is the only one who understands what I'm going through. I clenched my jaw. That's the best excuse you've got? Silence. I turned and walked out. Because I knew if I stayed 1 second longer, I'd say something I couldn't take back. You think that was bad? You have no idea what's coming next. Because I found out the real reason Rick was always around. Finding out my mom was sneaking around with my uncle? That was bad. Watching her try to justify it? Worse. But I still thought deep down that this was just a shitty, messed up love story between two grieving people. I thought it couldn't get any worse than that. I was wrong. Because I found out the real reason Rick had been around so much. And it wasn't just about my mom. I stopped talking to both of them. At home, I kept to myself, eating in my room, slamming doors just loud enough to make my point. I didn't even care if I was being childish. I didn't want to see them. I didn't want to hear their excuses. Mom tried a couple of times. Kevin, can we talk? No, we couldn't. So I stayed angry. Until I ran into Dad's best friend, Mike. Mike was one of those guys Dad had known forever. They worked together for years, back when Dad ran his contracting business. I hadn't seen him since the funeral, so when I spotted him outside a hardware store, I almost kept walking. But then he called my name. Kev! He jogged up, clapping me on the shoulder. How you holding up, kid? I shrugged. Been better. He nodded like he got it. Yeah. Your old man, he was one of the good ones. That lump formed in my throat again, the one I thought I was done with. I swallowed it down. Then Mike's expression shifted, like something was bugging him. Hey, listen. I don't want to stir shit, but, how's your mom doing? She holding up okay? I frowned. She's fine. Why? He hesitated. It's just, you know your dad had some money put aside, right? That threw me. What? Mike scratched the back of his head. Yeah, man. He was real careful about stuff like that. Had a separate account, savings. He told me about it a while back. Said it was for you and your mom, just in case something ever happened. My stomach dropped. Savings? Because if Dad had a separate account, Mom sure as hell hadn't mentioned it. And if she hadn't touched it, who had? I played it cool. Yeah, I know about that. Mike gave me a sad smile. Good. Your dad wanted to make sure you two were taken care of. I nodded, pretending like my whole world hadn't just tilted sideways. I went home and did some digging. Mom never talked about money. After Dad died, she let Rick handle things. And now I was realizing just how fucking stupid that was. I waited until she went out for groceries, then went straight for her desk. She kept all the important papers there, bills, bank stuff. I found what I was looking for way too fast. A withdrawal slip. Big amount. From a bank I didn't recognize. Rick's signature at the bottom. My hand started shaking. I rifled through more papers. More withdrawals. All from Dad's separate savings account. And now? The balance was zero. Rick had drained it. I sat on the couch, staring at the papers, my mind racing. Rick hadn't just taken my mom. He had taken everything. I thought about the way he'd swooped in, helping. The way he had inserted himself into our lives. It wasn't just grief. It wasn't love. It was a fucking setup. And the worst part? Mom knew. Maybe not at first, but at some point, she figured it out. And instead of stopping him, she had let him do it. I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. They thought I was some dumb kid. That I wouldn't notice. That I wouldn't do anything about it. They were wrong. I waited until dinner. I wanted them both here. I wanted them to see my face when I laid it all out. When Rick walked in, grinning like he belonged, I almost lost it right there. But I forced myself to stay calm. Mom was at the stove. Kev, can you set the table? Sure, I said, voice perfectly even. Then I pulled the withdrawal slips from my pocket and slammed them on the table instead. Both of them froze. Rick frowned. What's this? You tell me, I said, crossing my arms. Since it's your signature. Mom's face drained of color. Rick picked up the slips, eyes scanning them. Kevin, this. Shut the fuck up, I snapped. His head jerked up. Watch your tone. Oh, you want to talk about tone? I let out a humorless laugh. Because I'd love to hear the tone of your explanation. You know, for why you stole every last cent Dad left us. Silence. Then Mom spoke. Kevin, it's not. I turned on her. Don't. Just don't. My voice cracked, but I didn't care. You knew. You let him do this. You let him take everything Dad worked for. How could you? My throat closed up. Rick had the audacity to look annoyed. I didn't steal anything. Your dad would have wanted. Don't say his name. My hands curled into fists. You don't get to say his name. Mom looked like she wanted to cry. Kevin, please. You picked him over Dad. You picked him over me. I shook my head. I don't even know who you are anymore. Silence stretched between us. And then Rick scoffed. You're being dramatic. That did it. I lunged before I even thought about it. My fist connected with his jaw, hard enough that pain exploded up my arm, but I didn't care. He staggered back, swearing. Kevin! Mom shrieked. But I wasn't done. I grabbed another withdrawal slip and shoved it in her face. I hope it was worth it. Every dollar. Every night with him. I hope it was all worth losing your son. Her breath hitched. Don't say that. I backed away, heart pounding. It's already done. Then I turned and walked out the door. Update. So shit got real. First off, thanks to everyone who read my last post. I didn't expect this story to blow up, but here we are. A bunch of you asked for updates, and I guess I owe it to you. Plus, things have gotten complicated. Also, a shout out to the dude who said I should dropkick Rick into next week. Solid advice. Wish I'd thought of it sooner. Anyway, I'll answer some of the questions you guys left in the comments, just to clear things up before diving into what happened next. Why didn't you call the cops? I thought about it. But technically, Rick didn't do anything illegal, at least not that I could prove right away. He had Mom's permission to withdraw the money, even if it was shady as hell. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm pretty sure being a scumbag isn't a crime. Yet. How old were you? I was 17. Which, apparently, is old enough to handle all the adult bullshit in this family. Is there anyone you can talk to? A teacher friend, or someone else you trust? Funny you should ask. I did end up talking to someone. But we'll get to that. Why didn't you confront your mom earlier? Honestly, I kept hoping I was wrong. That it was just my messed up imagination. It's one thing to lose your dad, but it's a whole other thing to realize the only parent you have left is a liar. Alright, now for the real update. I didn't go home after punching Rick. Partly because I was afraid I'd finish what I started, and partly because I needed time to think. So, I crashed at my friend Ryan's place. Ryan's a chill guy who doesn't ask too many questions, perfect for when your life is falling apart. But after a couple days, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I needed a plan, and I needed help. I remembered Mike, the guy who told me about Dad's savings. If anyone knew how to deal with this mess, it was him. So I tracked him down. After talking to Mike, I realized something. Rick didn't just steal the money. He stole our entire life. And I couldn't let him get away with it. But I needed proof. Real proof. Not just some withdrawal slips. Because, as much as I hated to admit it, my mom was covering for him. She wasn't going to turn on him just because I yelled a few times. So, I did what any rational person would do. I broke into Rick's truck. Now, before anyone calls me an idiot, which I fully admit I was, hear me out. Rick is a moron. He's the kind of guy who doesn't think he can get caught, which means he doesn't bother being careful. His truck was parked outside, and I knew from years of riding in that thing that he never locked the glove compartment. So one night, while Mom and Rick were inside pretending they weren't the worst people on the planet, I snuck out. I slipped into the truck, popped open the glove box, and holy Fucking shit. There were bank statements, receipts, texts printed out from my mom's phone. Why the hell did he have printed texts? I have no clue. Maybe he was paranoid. Maybe he just liked having leverage. But I flipped through them, and that's when I saw a message from Rick to my mom 2 weeks before Dad died. It has to be soon. We can't keep waiting. I felt like I was going to throw up. I kept digging, and at the very bottom of the pile, I found a life insurance policy. Dad's life insurance. And guess who the new beneficiary was? Not me. Not even my mom. Rick. I don't remember getting out of the truck. I don't remember walking back into the house. But I do remember the moment I slammed those papers down on the dinner table. Rick and Mom were eating. They looked up at me like I was some kind of ghost. What's this? Rick asked, all fake casual. You tell me, I said, my voice shaking with rage. He picked up the papers, flipping through them. I watched his face shift just slightly, a flicker of panic before he schooled it into indifference. This is bullshit, he muttered. Mom reached for the papers next. The second she saw the texts, her face turned white. Kevin, where did you? I found it in his truck, I snapped. You gonna tell me why he was talking about timing before Dad suddenly dropped dead? Silence. Then Rick did the worst thing possible. He laughed, a low, smug little chuckle, like I was some dumb kid throwing a tantrum. You really think I killed your dad? He leaned back, shaking his head. Jesus, kid. Grief is making you delusional. I wanted to rip his throat out. But I wasn't stupid. I had proof. So, I pulled out my phone, hit play, and let the audio recording I'd made of our entire conversation in his truck play out. His own voice spilled out into the room. It has to be soon. We can't keep waiting. I already changed the policy. We just need to be patient. She won't suspect a thing. The idiot kid definitely won't. Rick's smirk vanished. Mom's hands flew to her mouth. You lied to me, she whispered, turning to Rick with actual horror on her face. Rick stood up so fast his chair toppled over. This is bullshit. I crossed my arms. Then let's call the cops. That's when he lunged. I saw it coming. Maybe it was adrenaline. Maybe I just wanted him to try something. But when he grabbed for me, I ducked, grabbed the nearest thing, a plate, and smashed it over his head. He went down. Hard. I heard Mom screaming, but I didn't care. I was on him in seconds, shoving my knee into his chest, grabbing my phone with one hand while pinning him down with the other. You're done, I growled. You hear me? Fucking done. I called 911. Rick thrashed, but he wasn't going anywhere. Not with the massive concussion I'd just given him. This whole thing still doesn't feel real. Some days, I wake up expecting to hear Dad downstairs, making those awful sandwiches with too much mayo. Some days, I wonder if there was a version of my life where none of this happened, where Dad was still alive, where Mom wasn't a traitor, where I didn't have to fight my own family for justice. But that's not my reality. Instead, my reality is this. I won. Rick's in prison. Mom's gone from my life. And me? I'm finally free.